Right now, I am in a place that viewers of this channel should be well acquainted with. I'm in the city of Gettysburg, which was the site of the largest battle of the Civil War. And when you come to Gettysburg, one of the places that people visit the most is this house right here. This is the Jennie Wade house, where the only civilian during the Battle of Gettysburg was killed, right here on Cemetery Hill. And there's all kinds of battle scars on this house, but there's also another marking on this home that was discovered by Eric's grandfather. Now, when you come to Gettysburg, when you're in town, you're on the battlefield. And the fighting that took place here in 1863 left this town completely battle scarred. You can walk around and see, bullet damage and shell damage on a lot of the buildings here today. Well, the Jennie Wade house is one of those structures that still bears some of the scars of the battle that took place here in July of 1863. I've moved around to the side of the Jennie Wade house, and this is the wall that is facing to the north and would have been exposed to all kinds of fire from the Confederate lines. So you can look, and in the brick and in the door, well, you can see just all kinds of bullet holes and pock marks and damage from the battle. And like I said, it's not only bullet damage that you can see on this house. There's another marking on the other side of this home that was made by one of the Union veterans who fought right here. I've moved over now to the opposite corner of the building, and from right here you can imagine being a Union soldier and looking out at the Confederate lines over here north towards Baltimore Street, or along Baltimore Street. Union lines would have been right up here on Cemetery Hill. And as you can imagine, this building would have offered some convenient protection for Union soldiers who were trying to fire back at the Confederates there in town. And at some point in the middle of the battle, there was a soldier who got out his bayonet and did a little carving in the bricks here. On the upper brick you can see some initials, and then on the lower brick it says CI 75 PV.
So we're at the Jennie Wade house in Gettysburg on a very busy day, so please excuse the street noise. But I wanted to tell a little story that's kind of been told before, but not quite in its entirety. A few years ago, a video came out about this story. It was told by Tim Smith, the famous historian here and battlefield guide, and Wayne Motts, also battlefield guide here. And in the story, Tim had said how he discovered a newspaper article, but I think it made it seem like he discovered what I'm about to show you, and it's not true. And he'll tell you that right away. The person who discovered this carving in the wall, it's pretty obvious today, was my grandfather in about 1913, 1914, around there. I think it was 1913. But on the wall there's a carving that says, it has the initials of a soldier in the 75th Pennsylvania, and it says it's AFM, and it says CI, Company I, 75 PV, Pennsylvania Volunteers. And nobody really knew about it, didn't know if it was post-war, I guess. When I told Tim Smith this story 15 years ago, he couldn't believe it. So the way my grandfather found this carving was, he met the veteran who actually made the carving. My grandfather, as a little boy, had a table here at the Jennie Wade house. It was the Jennie Wade Museum then, and back then it wasn't like it is today where they do a story of Jennie Wade. It was more like a relic museum. They had Civil War artifacts in there. And my grandfather, as a little boy, had a table here. He worked for them, and he sold artifacts and trinkets and tourist items. And it was probably during the 1913 reunion, I would assume, a soldier came up to him, and he had a hard time seeing. He had someone with him that was guiding him. He had poor eyesight, and he said, "Hey kid, I don't want to buy any of your stuff, but I'll give you a nickel if you help me find my initials on this building." So they looked around the building. He wasn't exactly sure where it was until they saw where it was, and it's right here. And what Tim Smith discovered later was a newspaper article that talks about this. But when we first found it, Tim was like, "Oh, I can't believe this." And so we took the initials, the AFM, and we went out to the Pennsylvania Monument. And for those of you who don't know, the Pennsylvania Monument has the name of everyone from Pennsylvania who were present at the Battle of Gettysburg. And you'll see some names are carved, scratched off because the vet said, "Hey, that guy was absent without leave at the time of the battle." So they're real strict about who's on that monument. So we narrowed it down to, I believe it was 2, maybe 3 possibilities, because remember, we just have initials, AFM. And I went to the National Archives, or sent my guy down there that does research for me, and I had him pull the records of all the 75th Pennsylvania guys who that could possibly be, that had the AFM possibility. We found a name out on the monument. We actually found 2 or 3, so we had some names. And so when those records came back, I went through the records, and it turned out the one guy had died before 1913. One of the other guys, I forget, something happened, but this Adam F. Miller didn't die until much later. So he was a good candidate. We thought we had our guy. But as I was going through his pension records, it said he was applying for a pension because he had lost his eyesight, and he needed extra money because he had to have someone with him all the time to guide him because he had poor eyesight. Matched my grandfather's story perfectly. Now, the other thing my grandfather told me that's not in this article is that when he came here, and it says there was hot fighting at the Jennie Wade house and all this stuff, but he said that they were taking fire from the Confederate line, which is that way. And he was back here shooting. And if you're right-handed, and I can't really get back there to reenact it, but if you're right-handed, you kind of have to go out like this to shoot, right? You know, it leaves you exposed. And he told my grandfather he thought he might get killed. Now, I don't know what initials are going to do at your spot. Maybe one of his comrades would find him, but he wanted to make sure that he marked his spot there in case he got killed. Now, that may be just an old vet telling stories, because it's just said that he carved his initials. It doesn't give a reason. That's what he told my grandfather. My grandfather showed me that when I was about 10 years old. And so my grandfather was the one who discovered it. Tim and I figured out who it was, and then Tim Smith's actual discovery, which was what the video he made was about him discovering this newspaper article that brought it full circle around. We'll show you some pictures of my grandfather at the Jennie Wade house. We'll drop them in. But I was hoping Tim would be able to join us today, but actually he had to go to he's at the Apple Festival today, and so maybe he'll come out later. But I wanted to tell that story. It's an important story. It's an interesting story. And of course, now the ghost tours have picked up on it, and there's all kinds of crazy stuff. But the 75th Pennsylvania were up in the Cemetery Hill area. Their monument is up there. So it would make sense that they would send a skirmish line out to around here. And as people say, you know, the shot that killed Jennie Wade came from one of the houses right up there. So it would make sense that they were shooting back at whoever was shooting towards this house.